Before we get this started, I want to begin with some shameless, self-indulgent promotion. We now have merch! Yeah! We have a couple of t-shirts that you can buy right now. One is the Vanilla Gorilla Seal of Approval, basically saying that your existence is approved by yours truly, and the Bernard's Burger shirt, which is cursed as hell. By the way, if you buy both shirts right now and use the code BIGMICAMERCH, all one word, all capitalized, you get free shipping. There's more designs that will be coming in the future, and the money that we get from this will actually go towards me making my own mecha comic in the future. So, go snag you some shirts. Alright, on with the video. Mobile Suit Gundam, as a franchise, couldn't be more profitable than it already is. During the pandemic, the series became the single most profitable anime franchise in the world, finally surpassing Dragon Ball. Granted, a lot of that came about because of the perfect storm of events. During the pandemic, people had a lot more time on their hands, and as such would look into hobbies to kill time with. Gunpla was perfect for that, and just about any builder can tell you how difficult it was at certain points to actually get your hands on master grade kits. If you were going to get certain P-Bandai kits, like the Endless Waltz mobile suits, you had to be on the website the instant that they were listed to have the hope of getting one. Given that mobile suit model kit sales have been effectively what has kept Gundam going throughout its entire lifetime, it's gotten to a point where more and more people realized how fun of a hobby it is. Not to mention, The Witch from Mercury coming out at a time where people were hungry for more kits to build was another element of that perfect storm. The reason I bring all this up is because what I'm talking about today isn't about where Gundam is right now fiscally, but rather where it is creatively. This is something I've discussed more than once over the years, especially in my criticisms of the Gundam Seed series and The Witch from Mercury. Short-term and long-term are two elements of a business that always have to be considered, and you have to be consistently building up your future if you have any hope of your business continuing to grow as it goes on. It goes without saying that Sunrise is probably very happy with Mobile Suit Gundam in regards to money that they bring in on a day-to-day basis as of right now. My question is whether or not they're going to be able to keep the momentum up 5, 10, or 20 years down the line when they start to run out of the goodwill that has been built up from previous installments. Mobile Suit Gundam has always been a story about war. Granted, it's a war waged with really cool giant robots, but it is a war nonetheless. There are exceptions to this rule, such as the SD Gundam shows and the Build Divers shows, but by and large, the formula has been pretty easy to suss out. Even G Gundam, a series that focuses on martial art fights, still has the underlying theme that the Gundam fight is considered a perfect war, and can be just as lethal and traumatizing. I'll go over that whenever I actually delve more in depth into G Gundam. Recent installments of Gundam, however, have had problems. Gundam Requiem for Vengeance gave it an honest shot, but it had massive characterization issues, with the only memorable character left over from that show being Arya Solari. Even then, some may remember her more for her haircut than her characterization, which is unfortunate, because personally I liked her. Gundam G-Quux took us to an alternate universe version of the Universal Century, but it was not willing to pull the trigger on the maturity and depth that the creative team behind it was very much capable of doing, or the creativity and depth that those of us who enjoy the Universal Century were used to getting. It felt like Diet Gundam, and speaking as a rabid Pepsi drinker, one really good way to piss me off is to substitute the real thing with the diet version. Nobody wants half of an effort. Gundam Seed Freedom was, if nothing else, hilarious. It took a series that was already well known for melodrama and a Mary Sue main character, and just turned it up to 11. The main focus of the story was an NTR fetishist's wet dream, and just simply solidified Seed as the twilight of the mecha genre. The Witch from Mercury came off as a show with a lot of promise, which had a first season that wasn't half bad at all. The second season, well, it completely shat the bed, being completely unaware of what the audience was drawn to within the first season. Rather than getting more interesting characterization and fleshing out the really unique Gundam universe they had set up, all the interesting things happened in the background, while we had to deal with Miorina abusing the most likable Gundam protagonist since Turn A came out at the end of the 90s. There's a commonality about all 4 of these entries, though. After they ended, there was a bit of discussion for maybe a month or so about them, and then people just forgot they existed. Compare that to the original show, Zeta, Double Zeta, Wing, so on and so forth, series that are still talked about to this day. You know, the level of discussion is just on different levels. When it comes to these newer series, every time that someone tries to bring them up in discussion, it honestly feels forced. It has the energy of a 3-year-old tugging on his dad's pant leg, wanting their dad's attention while he's in the middle of work or just trying to cook supper. It's not really about actual discussion of the franchise, but rather just trying to say some sort of a hot take to get social media clout for 5 seconds while ignoring your parents trying to tell you to get off Twitter and get a job. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Melvin. All jokes aside, I feel the franchise that I love so much and enjoy discussing so much doesn't seem to have the same spark that it used to have. Sometimes I look at Iron-Blooded Orphans and ask myself whether or not that was really the last gasp of a true, real robot story. Granted, there's still a little bit of hope with Gundam Hathaway, considering that movie hit the mark perfectly, and I have no doubt that its sequel will do the same thing. But the fact of the matter is that we need more of that. We need Sunrise to be willing to greenlight stories that are actually going to challenge the audience and their perceptions, while also bringing the fun and enjoyable action that we've seen so much from many Gundam series of the past. What makes it a little bit more insulting is the fact that so many of these series have been greenlit that don't touch the quality of Crossbone Gundam. Shirt Dude, my editor, has done a pretty in-depth series about that manga, so he can back me up when I say that it's probably the biggest fountain of untapped animation potential that Sunrise has at their fingertips. It's possible that they're waiting until Gundam Hathaway finishes, but they're also dragging their heels on that as well. Is it going to take another 4 years after Part 2 gets released for us to get the whole story? On top of that, I also feel like you could easily remake Gundam F91 into a mini-series, and that particular film could reach its full potential. They also have Gundam F90 to pull from, or Moon Gundam, and the list seems to go on. There's just better stories out there than what we've been getting in animation. I know I'm not the only one who has looked at Mobile Suit Gundam over the last 6, 7 or so years, and simply seen the biggest mecha franchise on the planet continue to fumble the ball in a creative aspect. I found myself diving into Warhammer 40,000, and I feel like I'm getting my sci-fi war story fix in a much more significant way with that franchise. Reading books like Horus Rising, Lion, Son of the Forest, Hell's Reach, the Carcharodon's books, the Night Lords trilogy, and so forth are doing what Sunrise refuses to do. Not to mention, Warhammer 40k is actually willing to put out a video game with some fucking effort in it. Just look at Space Marine 2, Darktide, or Mechanicus, and you get quality video gaming. With Gundam, it's almost all gotcha slop. As time goes on and Warhammer continues to put out more interesting and much more mature content, I feel like they're going to pull part of the market away from Sunrise. Heck, I would put some of the series on Warhammer Plus up against recent Gundam offerings, and I honestly think that Warhammer has the better stories, provided that we're not talking about Hammer and Bolter. No, seriously, watch something like Requiem for Vengeance, and then compare it to Angels of Death, the mini-series about the Blood Angels. Or compare Gundam Seed Freedom to Iron Within, the Iron Warrior short film. There's so much better stuff coming from 40k these days. This is what I mean about long-term appeal. We have entered a time and space where if you can't continue to deliver quality on a regular basis, eventually people will check out and move on to something else. We get a lot of that with Disney properties, where the MCU has struggled for any sort of cultural relevance in the last 5 or so years, and they've fumbled the bag on reviving the Alien and Predator franchises on top of screwing up Star Wars. I'm a science fiction guy. I have been ever since I was 8 years old, and I would love for us to re-enter a phase where there is so much good sci-fi that I feel like I'm drowning in it. And if nothing else, I do feel like the classics never really go anywhere, and I can still enjoy them wherever the hell I want. I would just like to continue to see more interesting ideas from a company that has put out so many of them as the decades have gone by. But I'm not really convinced that Sunrise cares that much. I think they're a little bit more worried about modern-day money than they really are money 5, 10, so on and so forth years from now. I think that there's a market out there for people that want these type of mature sci-fi war stories. And if some people aren't willing to dive into that group that wants these good and interesting stories about wartime featuring giant robots, or just in a sci-fi setting, someone is going to come along and more than happily take the money that people are willing to spend on this sort of thing. So with all that said, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Consider becoming a member and all that fun stuff. My name is Big Micah C. I will see you next time.